This is Wild About Liberty, where the community joins together. Now here's your host, Terry Wild.
Thank you for tuning into the program today. We're going to talk about a lot of issues that I think matter to you and are part of the whole situation that we're dealing with, both politically and religiously, and especially some of the things that are going on in the state legislature. And for that, we have our call-in guest, Steve Frank. Welcome to the show, Steve. We're going to be talking about a lot of the things you're doing. You're with California Political News and Views. Tell us just a little bit about that.
Well, the California Political News and Views was started in 1996. It comes out 6 days a week, 3 a.m. in the morning. It is a free subscription. Every day it gives 10 stories that the media has either missed or misrepresented, and giving a conservative viewpoint on what's happening now and what's going to happen in the future.
Nice. Well, we're going to be talking about that. And our other guest in the studio today is a man from Dublin, Ireland, Vince Matalino. Oh, no, you're not from Ireland?
No.
With a name like Matalino, where would that possibly be?
Well, that's an Italian name.
Yeah.
My family thinks that we're from Sicily. Personally, I think that's just where they departed to come to America.
Like a lot of people in the day, huh? I know our people came over. I am Irish. And so Matalino is a good Italian name. We appreciate you being on the program.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Steve, give us a little helicopter ride on what's going on in the state from your perspective.
Well, I have just great news for your audience. The national unemployment average is 3.8%. And thanks to the policies of Gavin Newsom and the Sacramento Democrats, the California unemployment rate is 4.8%. 25% higher than the national average. They have really done a great job in destroying the jobs in this country or in the state. There's another part of that story. I was just be doing a story in a couple of days in my newsletter. In LA County, they're very proud of the fact that they've gained 59,000 jobs. Now, that sounds like a good thing, but they don't note that many of those jobs are second jobs. And in LA County, the unemployment rate is almost 6%. So Governor Newsom is going to be running for president on the slogan that I can do for America what I've done for California, destroy the economy.
Well, that's not all that's being destroyed. You know, there are so many things that are going on, and you know, the people that I'm talking to every day, they don't know what's going on. And so I think by being able to provide them with your newsletter and the updates, we want to be able to inform our listeners ahead of time before it's a done deal and there's nothing we can do about it. So thank you for doing that newsletter. Tell us a little bit more about it and what entails being a member of your subscriber.
All you have to do is go to capoliticalnewsandviews.com, capoliticalnewsandviews.com, and put your email in the subscription form, click on it, and the next day at 3 a.m., you'll receive a copy of the day's newsletter, totally free.
What made you start that newsletter? Because I know you've been involved for a long time in California politics. What prompted you to start that?
I started it in 1996. Interestingly enough, if you think back to 96, the internet wasn't what it is today. So I started it with 200 faxed edition copies every day to 200 subscribers by fax machine. And eventually by 2001, I got on the internet with this, and it's grown ever since.
Well, you know, one of the things that has taken place recently, Vince, with you is you went down to buy some ammunition for your legally owned gun, and what happened?
Well, I was informed that unless I had bought a firearm within the last 10 years and had that firearm connected to the address that's on my ID, my real ID, which I thought would take care of everything, firearm-wise, you can't buy ammunition unless you've bought that firearm that's connected to your address.
Another form of control, Steve?
Oh, absolutely. That's why so many gun owners are buying their ammunition in Arizona and Nevada and having their friends ship it here to California. The other part of it is there's been a bill in the Sacramento legislature, which is going to be looked at again in January. I hate to tell you this, Vince. They want to put a tax of a minimum of 5 cents on every bullet that you buy. And you have to and you have to register it.
The bullet.
The bullet.
Unbelievable. Well,
yeah, I've heard that the UN wants to have a limitation on ammunition that you can have legally, and that's 50 rounds. And now I don't know if that's 50 rounds per firearm or just 50 rounds cut and dry.
Difficult to say what the UN wants in that, but the real goal is to take away your right to own a gun. And by the way, as part of the UN thing, not only do you have to register with the state of California your ammunition and your gun, you're going to have to do it with the United Nations. And they haven't put a price on the registration fee.
Now, how does that work? How does the United Nations have any standing with us as citizens of the United States?
Well, the president is giving it to them.
And that's coming from a presidential level?
That's correct.
Well, that's the issue that we're dealing with is government overreach. And it seems to me that the whole plan is to push us further and further into a corner where we don't have our rights anymore. How are they getting away with this, in your opinion?
We finance about 60% of the United Nations. We financed over 50% of a United Nations welfare program that's actually been financing Hamas and other Middle East terrorists. So we literally were the financiers of October 7th.
Wow. So, Vince, when you look at the situation, we're here in Fresno County. We're dealing with all these different areas of drama that the government is trying to control us. How do you feel about our ability to change that? What just as from a average person, what do you think we can do to change all of this?
I'm sorry, I wish I had a real good answer for you. You take it to court and try to limit their ability, and as soon as you start your lawsuit, the city or state of California will have 11 lawyers jumping on it and putting a stay on it.
So that's really the answer. There's, Steve, why aren't more lawyers who are part of the cause and want to keep the Constitution and our liberties and our freedoms? There was a time when there would be a dozen lawsuits against these kinds of regulations that are regulating us unconstitutionally.
Well, I think Vince had the right direction on this. Here's the problem. So Vince decides he's going to sue because of some law passed by the County Board of Supervisors or some state law. He takes money from his bank account to pay for his attorney. On the other hand, the government, using Vince's tax dollars, goes against him, with their 10 or 11 attorneys. And so he literally is financing those who are opposing him. Imagine in a civil suit, if you were in a car accident and you had to pay not only for your attorney, but also for the attorney of the person who hit you. And that's what it's about. It's the abuse of power. It's the ability to use the millions and billions of dollars of tax money against the citizens so the citizens can't do it. There's a second part to this. During the Obama administration, Obama continued to sign totally unconstitutional laws. And at one point at a press conference, a reporter asked him, well, how come you sign these unconstitutional laws? You know, so you're going to get sued. And his words were, so sue me. And the reason he could say that is you, Terry, would sue federal law, but you'd go against the whole federal government and their ability to use your tax money to destroy you, the IRS to investigate you, the FBI to be the Gestapo against you, the local police to harass you, and now is the big one. I'm going to be doing this story in the next couple of days. As you know, this is Thanksgiving, and a lot of people are going to be on airplanes in the next few days, millions. And as you also know, several years ago, we created, or the federal government created, something called the air marshals. And these are people who secretly go onto airplanes to make sure terrorists don't take over the airplanes. And I bet you think that's what they're doing today. The deputy director of the air marshal system announced the other day, and I'm putting in my newsletter, that the air marshals are no longer on the planes. You know what they're doing? They are looking at people who flew into Washington, D.C. on around January 6th of 2021. And even if you never went near the Capitol, if you flew into D.C. into Dulles or to Reagan National, and then visited relatives in Maryland or Virginia, never went into Washington, D.C., they are now surveilling you at your home. So, Vince, if you flew in to Reagan National on January 5th to visit your family in Virginia, and that's all you did, there are there are air marshals that are now trailing you, surveilling you to make sure that you're not going to be a terrorist. So they're no longer protecting our planes. They are now, they have become the Gestapo of, like we had in Germany, but they're the modern day Gestapo.
Well, you know, that really describes why people are feeling despair. They're feeling helpless. And I think that's a form of intimidation that they're planning and using as a tactic to get control. And it really is boiled down now. They're trying to control every aspect of our life. They're tracking us, our purchases, what we do online, the trafficking, and looking at all of our movements. So what do people do about it? What's our solution? And I know you have spent a lot of time meeting throughout the state. How do you see our solution, and what can we offer people as a way to change all this?
Well, the first thing is to expose the Gestapo tactics of the federal government. That's the first thing.
How do you do that?
Well, my newsletter, your radio show, going to public forums. If a Congress member has a public forum in your area in the Central Valley, go to it. Ask them what they are doing to stop the surveillance, for instance, of using the air marshals of people who flew into Reagan National on January 5th. And why are they doing that? And why did they keep it secret all this time? And how are they protecting us in the air when that was the goal of the air marshal program? I asked them why they continue to finance racial discrimination that the KKK would be proud of. They don't no longer call it the KKK. They call it DIE, diversity, equity, and inclusivity. I call it diversity, inclusivity, and DIE, and equity, because it is DIE. It is killing the American psyche and the American freedoms. And we are now as regulated a segregationist, discriminatory government as any government ever has been. And that includes Mississippi in 1960, Alabama in 1950, American government. And here in California, our campuses have become hallmarks of discrimination and hate. And the governor of California has been silent about it.
Well, you know, in Fresno County, there are a number of groups that have formed to deal with the school issue, with the human trafficking issue, with fair elections and fraud at the ballot box. And up until now, I think as I hear you talk, I think back on how much new information has given us the understanding of what they're actually doing. And it's hard to even imagine that our government is working this way against us as citizens. I mean, it just is hard to believe. And then the next step is, well, what do we do about it? So in Fresno County, we have good people trying to organize, trying to respond to all of this. And one of the ways that we're working to do that is a Liberty Coalition we're located in Clovis at 1123 Railroad Avenue at the Clovis Business Center. And we're holding meetings every week from 12 to 1:30 called Liberty Lunch. And we're giving people an opportunity to speak, to tell us what's going on. It's a networking, meet and greet type thing where we really see ourselves as a hub, and we want people to respond. But if you're just an average person, you go to work every day, you work hard, you have to pay your bills, you have a life, and you would need to live your life. And now part of that requirement is you have to deal with this president, with the Congress, with the CIA, with the FBI, with the governor, with all of these levels of authority, government authority, that is actually trying to destroy us. That's kind of hard to process, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So, again, what do you see going on in the state that we're not aware of that can help us?
Well, there's only one thing that can help us, and that is us. And that means on March 5th and November 5th of 2024, we vote for the candidates that oppose this. And if a candidate, Republican or Democrat, supports this type of thing, we shouldn't be voting for them. If they continue to support the air marshals, the FBI being Gestapo, the discrimination in our society and on campuses, the hate that is being promulgated by professors and teachers, and the curriculum, if that's the way it is, we should vote against them. And quite frankly, I believe at this point, if you send your child to a government school, that is a priori evidence of child abuse because you're abusing your child. You need to take the child out of a government school because no government school can be accepted because the curriculum and the promotion of hate, biased reporting. There's a bill. You want to talk about bills. There's a bill that the governor signed that makes it illegal in a classroom to give misinformation. Okay, so why hasn't he arrested himself for giving misinformation on crime, on illegal aliens, on drug use, open borders, on COVID and masks and vaccines? He's one of the prime liars about public policy, but he wants to arrest you if you tell the truth. Literally, he uses the word misinformation for truth. If you tell the truth, you're a criminal in California now.
Well, there's basically, in my estimation, 3 people groups that need to get involved more than they have in the past if we're going to have any chance of winning at the ballot box. First of all, I think the biggest one is Christians, and Christians have historically not registered to vote, and they haven't voted. I think the rate that I keep hearing is about 25% of Christians vote. And I actually heard the number 50% of Christians in America, according to certain surveys, are even registered to vote. So that means half of the people that are registered to vote don't vote. And only a quarter of the people who are Christians actually go to the ballot box. So we need to appeal to Christians, and that's what we're doing now in Fresno County. We're trying to reach the Christian community and make them aware of how serious this is, and then trying to get them to register and vote. The other people group, I think that's important, are the no party preference people. A lot of those are disgruntled Republicans, and they have, I don't know what their motivation is, but the no party preference is just slightly behind Republicans and registered voters in California. And then you have the Hispanic people group that make up in the Central Valley 60% of the population of the Central Valley. So what are some of your thoughts how to accomplish that?
Well, first of all, most NPPs that I know are indeed former Republicans, but both the Republicans and Democrats or NPP have one thing in common. They don't believe the political parties represent them anymore. You talked a moment ago about election integrity and honest elections. The California Republican Party still allows, and I mean this by saying they've refused to file a complaint, that 400,000 dead people are still on the voting rolls.
Exactly.
The Republican Party has accepted that. The chair of the Republican Party says, and I'll quote her, "We have fair and honest elections in California." I mean, it's obvious that either she doesn't know what she's talking about or she doesn't care. And the Democrat Party is just as bad. They're the ones that created this ballot harvesting that is fraudulent. They're the ones that make sure every dead body votes in November. It is a disaster. And so, and the corruption of both parties, the reason our taxes are so high is not only because of the Democrats, but because 7 Republicans voted to raise taxes on a bill called Cap and Trade. And that takes over $1 billion a year from families and businesses. And it was 7 Republicans who put it over the top. It was a Republican governor with AB 32, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who created the legislative mess to close down businesses in California and make it too expensive for businesses to exist. And we all know all the stuff that Gavin Newsom has done to make sure that there's no transportation in California after 2035, that you're only allowed to buy an electric vehicle in the state of California, which is good for Arizona and Nevada, because then people will buy their cars in those states. And of course, the revenues in California from the auto sales will go down dramatically. The number of jobs will go down dramatically. And Newsom, even though he won't be in office, I am sure that he is going to be proud of his accomplishment of furthering for a lifetime the destruction of the economy of California. So we are in a bad position with the environment, with government, but we have to take responsibility. I don't blame Newsom. I don't blame the Republicans. I blame the people who don't vote, and I blame the people who do vote who aren't aware. I have a saying. You mentioned before I've been involved a long time in politics. I have a theory, and it's never been wrong. You never go broke underestimating the intelligence of the voter. Literally, they have no idea when the elections are. They have no idea who the candidates are. I've done surveys periodically after the November general election within 2 or 3 days. I get a list of people who voted in certain areas. And I call them and I say, Terry, did you vote on November 5th? And you say, yes. And I say, well, who did you vote for Congress? And almost every time the person says, I don't remember or I don't know. And so if you don't know who you voted for Congress, if you don't know who you voted for Assembly or State Senate, you get the government you deserve. You need to become an intelligent citizen. And it's the unintelligent citizens that have given us the disaster we have today.
Well, sure. It's like you don't hear Democrat, Republican as much anymore. You're hearing this other entity that kind of emerged up out of the Democrat Party. We're calling them the far left. And so those people have earned a reputation of being blatant pathological liars. They make it all up. Mm-hmm. They turn everything upside down. So their reputation that they've earned, and that we should know that they do this, is they lie all the time. They misrepresent everything. And that which is right is called wrong. That which is wrong is called right. So that's what we're dealing with. And my issue is when we keep saying that, we're trying to inform people that they should know this, be aware of it, understand the real facts, and then do something about it. But it comes off like we're in a desperate position all the time and there's no hope. So how do we change that message? How do we get people informed and involved and aware so there is hope?
Well, I would begin where you began on voters before. I'd begin in the pews. I think it's the responsibility of the ministers and the lay leaders to educate the public. There is a friend of mine, a late friend of mine by the name of Phyllis Schlafly. She taught me that every dollar of taxation is a dollar less of freedom. And that means that's a dollar less for you to tithe to your church, to give to your community, to help your family, and to build a business. And I think it's the responsibility of the church to educate the people as to the proper role of government and the proper role of the church. And as long as the church steers away from educating the people, the churches will be closed. Newsom was able to close the churches in California because the pastors hadn't taught the congregants to fight back and say no.
Exactly.
Very few churches stayed open. They should have all stayed open and told the government to stick to the First Amendment and stay out of our business. Instead, like sheep, they closed their doors.
And that's a lesson well learned. And I think people believe that now. They shouldn't have closed. They shouldn't have allowed themselves to be closed. I mean, they went so far as to say, okay, if you do go to church, go outside, but you can't sing. I mean, they're telling us not to sing in church as being, and if we don't, we're uncaring, we're spreading the disease, we're guilty of doing harm to people. Again, that upside down, perverted lying and misrepresentation. So we have hope here in Clovis and in Fresno County and Selma, Reedley, Kingsburg. There are good people. There are pastors now that are stepping up. And one of the things we've been doing is getting churches to be part of the affiliate program of Salt and Light Council. And Dran Reese and Salt and Light has put all this information together so pastors can embrace it. They can put a table in their foyers and they can hand out literature. It's all been vetted. It doesn't violate their 501c3. It brings no threat to them at all. They just have to have the will to do it. So we want to continue to encourage pastors in Fresno County, step up, take action.
So many of them are very afraid of losing their tax status.
They are.
And yeah, to even speak about political issues, they feel that they're endangering themselves for that.
But I should note for you, Vince, that Salt and Light Council has letters from attorneys showing that pastors can get involved, that they're not in violation of any federal law or state law. And all they have to do is ask Salt and Light, and they'll get that that documentation to protect them. And quite frankly, no minister anywhere has ever been charged. Now, here's the other side of the story, how they lie.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you without any hesitation, none whatsoever. I'm not somebody that predicts the future. I will tell you on the Sunday, March 3rd, and on the Sunday, November 3rd of 2024, there's a church in San Francisco called Glide Memorial. It's a Methodist church, a Black Methodist church. At that church and at the AME Methodist Baptist Church in Los Angeles and several other churches around the state, Democrat candidates will be called up to the pulpit to speak. No Democrat pastor has had their church closed because every election cycle on that Sunday, they have Democrat candidates, not Republican, just Democrat candidates speak from the pulpit. They can do it. Why can't we?
That's the question, isn't it? Why aren't the pastors taking this responsibility? And so I think ignorance of what they can and cannot do has played into it. Some of the pastors don't know enough about their 501c regulations to even know where the lines are that they can't cross. But that's what we want to help them understand. And Salt and Light has that information. You can just go to the website. I think it's saltandlightcouncil.org. And you could Google it, but I think it's .org and there's a .com. And it's all there for them. All they have to do is click the button, go to the website. It directs you to the different categories of what they offer. But we have to get them to do it. And we have a number of pastors now in Fresno County that have stepped up. They have kept their churches open. They do have Salt and Light affiliate programs working in their churches, but we just need more. You know, your newsletter is another source of information that we have to get people to subscribe to. Now, there's no cost to subscribing, right?
It's totally free, and it comes out at 3 a.m. 6 days a week. I don't do a Sunday edition. And some people have asked, why do you do it at 3 a.m.? Originally, the newsletter would come out anywhere between 7 and 9 a.m. in the morning. That was how I started it. And sometime around 2004, 2005, some talk show hosts, as you know, Terry, I do a lot of talk show interviews. And so 2004, 2005, some of the talk show hosts asked me if I could put it out earlier because they wanted to use my material for their show. So if I put it out at 3 o'clock in the morning, when they start their prep for the morning shows that start at 6 or 7 or 8 in the morning, they have my material to use. If I put it out at 7 or 9 in the morning, it's old news by the next day. So that's how I got to 3 a.m. in the morning.
Well, I hope you have a way to time that so you don't have to get up in the morning at 3 o'clock. But so the website, give us that web address again.
capoliticalnewsandviews.com. Totally free.
So where we're going to go from here, so we've seen a number of organizations here locally take on different issues. What's going on as far as statewide organizations? I know the Republican Party is divided. You've got Jessica Patterson and her sphere of influence, and she's finding resistance from people who don't agree with their approach to how to do things. So we're a little bit divided in that way. So the Republican Party, how would you describe it?
Irrelevant.
Irrelevant.
It's just irrelevant. They don't do voter registration. They don't make sure they have candidates. This California Republican Party doesn't give money to candidates. They hold what they call training sessions, but they're not training sessions. What they are is, let's say, Vince, you're running for the assembly. They're in Fresno, and they invite you to this training session. The goal is to find out who Vince is, to find out if he's a conservative, and if so, is he a conservative that we can control and own, or is he a real conservative? And if he's a real conservative, they'll make sure there's a candidate running against you and take away your right to be a nominee of the party. So I don't worry about what the state Republican Party is. I'll give you an advance. On January 20th of next year, in your town of Fresno, the Tea Party California Caucus is holding a day-long training session at the Wyndham Hotel at the airport to train candidates to run for Assembly, State Senate, Congress, School Board, and City Council. It's going to be a full day of learning so that conservatives can put together a true grassroots campaign. It's not money, but organization that wins elections. And we're going to teach you on January 20th how to do that. And if anybody wants to get information on it, all they have to do is either contact me or go to the Google Tea Party California Caucus and go to their website, and all the information on that event is there on January 20th. That's one thing, training people from throughout the state. Second, giving people an opportunity to understand that it's not, there's a great bumper sticker. It says, think globally, act locally.
Yes.
Worry about the presidency, of course, but make sure your board of supervisors are good. Make sure your school board is good. Your city council, your local assembly, state senate, and member of Congress. Worry about the president, vote right there, but work locally to make sure that your local community, Tip O'Neill was right, all politics are local. And if you have a good city council, a good board of supervisors, good representation in Sacramento and Washington, everything else takes care of itself. But you have to get involved.
But, you know, we have to vote Republican. There's no other option for us to win elections. So we find ourselves in this kind of a weird situation. There's issues that we can't agree on, and the Republican Party isn't performing in terms of how we feel as conservatives, Christian Judeo value conservatives. So how do you see that, Vince? I mean, are you a registered Republican?
I'm sorry. No, I didn't. I ditched them back in the Tea Party days.
So what do you?
I went independent.
You went independent?
Yes.
Well, there you go. So here we are fighting the battle and trying to overcome all these obstacles. And we're also having to overcome the differences that we have with the Republican Party. So it, just like you said, Steve, it's up to us individually to do something about it.
Well, for instance, you have in Fresno upcoming Assemblyman Jim Patterson has announced he's not running for re-election.
Right.
And so there's an open seat. It'll be should be a Republican seat. Meet the candidates, quiz them, ask them. They have a history. Ask them what they've done before in regard to public policy issues. What have they done to fight for our values? Making sure that kids get a quality education, that discrimination is thrown out of the schools, which has been imposed upon the schools by government. And so that's a great place. You have supervisor races. Talk to the candidates. Ask them. Don't let them go away with what I call weasel words. Well, there's some thought that we should be doing this. No, I don't care about some thought. What do you believe, and how will you vote?
Exactly.
I don't care about others. I care about you. You're the candidate. And as far as Vince is concerned, as being an NPP nominee, I'm not happy about that. But on the other hand, that doesn't stop Vince, because we have a top two, to vote vote for Republicans for Assembly or for state Senate or for Congress. He can't vote in the presidential primary, nor can he vote for Central Committee. But for every other office, he could vote for anybody he wants, Republican, Democrat, or Independent. And so Vince and people like Vince need to be part of the discussion of the candidates and vet the candidates as to what they believe. I always love it. Ask any candidate, including people like Schiff and Porter. Oh, I'm personally pro-life. Okay.
Yeah.
What's your voting record? That's what counts. I don't care what you personally believe. If you're an elected official, you're voting. How did you vote? That's the most important thing that we have, is how do you vote? And you have to ask them. Don't tell me that you're personally pro-life. I always say, I don't care. I want to know how you're going to vote. Are you going to vote for tax dollars to go for abortions?
Well, what I hear you saying, Steve, is reminiscent to the statement, you either stand for something or you stand for nothing. So if you don't stand for something, you just don't have anything to offer. And what we're trying to do in Fresno County is work together as individual, independent political organizations. We have several of them, very good organizations. We have the CRA, we have the NRA, we have Constitutionalists for California. Our organization is Liberty Coalition. And I think our claim to fame, if we have any, is that we've been able to put on a Liberty lunch every single week for the past 4 years, with a little exception during the COVID thing, but we stayed open during the COVID. And it's a place where you can come and talk and meet and discuss how we're going to take on the different issues, but we're trying to close the gap. We want to make ourselves a coordinated team as much as we can. So if you're interested in getting involved, you can come to Liberty Coalition every Wednesday from 12 to 1:30. Our location is at the Clovis Business Center, 1123 Railroad Avenue, Clovis, California, 93612. You can go online to libertycoalition.com, find an area that you're interested in, get involved. We're taking all kinds of issues on. We're doing a precinct program to be able to put an effective precinct group together. We're doing medical information and research on what's going on in the realm of COVID and the medical area. We're doing a lot of things. So it's up to you. If you're listening today and you want to be part of the solution, then you can be part of the solution. And it's like Steve said, and it's like Vince said, we have to take that responsibility on ourselves. So be involved, do what you can, be part of our program every day. We're here at KXEX radio station, 1550 AM on the dial. Tell your neighbors, tell your friends, and we will work together to try and make this change happen. So, Steve, thanks for coming on the program. I hope you can come on as often as possible. We need your insight. We need your newsletter. We want to get people subscribed to that. Vince, thanks for coming on.
Well, sure.
And we're going to be here every single day, Monday through Friday, 6 to 7. Please join us for Liberty, Wild About Liberty. God bless.
Thank you for listening to Wild About Liberty with Terry Wild, only on KXEX 1550.